Hello, my dear students. Today, for label of second paper, we will discuss the Employees Compensation Act 1923 given in your syllabus unit 4th. And this is video lecture number 32 from Dr. A.K. Tyagi. And in this session, we'll discuss about the employer's liability for compensation. So when we talk about the Employees Compensation Act 1923, which was enacted to provide payment in the form of compensation by the employers to the employees for any injuries suffered in any accident, and it is one of the earliest, labor welfare and social security legislation enacted in India. And prior to, means earlier this act was known as the Workmen Compensation Act, and it was named as Employees Compensation Act on 18 January 2010 as means now employees in clerical capacity are also eligible for the compensation. So we can understand once an employee is putting all sincere efforts in the work, who means we would desire to get some benefits in return. And when the principle of vicarious liability is applied, the employer is liable to pay the compensation irrespective of employee's negligence. And employer can anticipate the damages payable to the employees, but uh, means the employer actually should provide a relief to the employee, and an employer becomes liable when employees have sustained injuries, or when employee or workman has met with an accident in unavoidable situations during the course of employment, and employee who is a part-time worker will also be entitled to get the benefits under this act. To be eligible for the benefits under the act, following requirements need to be fulfilled. And the person must be an employee of the organization. Yes, it is the very first requirement, and the person must have been injured at the workplace in the course of employment. So the employer's liability for compensation is given under section 3, and an employer is liable to pay compensation to an employee. Number one, for personal injury caused to him by accident. So it was an accident. And two, for any occupational disease which was contracted by him. So let's talk about these given under section 3. So under this section, we have to prove that there was an accident and the accident had a causal connection with the employment, and the accident must have been suffered in the course of employment. And so first we'll try to understand that what is that causal connection with the employment, and what is the in the course of the employment. So first we try to understand the arising out of the employment. So what is the causal connection of that accident? So this phrase arising out of the employment is not merely confined to the nature of the employment, because sometimes it might happen that the action you are initiating as a workman, as an employee, right, that is arising because of the employment, and the phrase applies to conditions, obligations, and incidents of the employment as well. If by reason of any of these factors the workman is under danger, or he or she suffers any injury, and then these injuries would be one which arises out of the employment. And there is an important case related to this, Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Company. And in this case, the following test was laid down for determining whether an accident arose out of the employment, or it was arising out of the employment or not, right? So was it part of the injured person employment? That kind of hazard or other issues were involved which caused this injury, right? And if yes, then the accident arose out of the employment. If no, then it because if what it was not part of the employment to hazard to suffer or to do cannot well be the cause of an accident arising of the employment. So we have to test this and to ask if the cause of the accident was within the sphere of the employment or was one of the ordinary risk of the employment, right? Or reasonably incidental to the employment, or conversely was an added peril and outside the sphere of the employment, that we'll discuss about added peril. And the workman should have acted as he was acting or should have been in the position in which he was, whereby in the course of that employment he sustained injury. So we have to check whether this injury was arising out of the employer. And the other thing is in the course of his employment, that is means the in the course of the work which the workman is employed to do and which is incidental to it, the doctrine means in the course of employment we refer in that way. So there is one doctrine also, doctrine of notional extension, which provides the scope of the phrase in the course of employment as a rule. The we all know that as a rule, the employment of a workman does not commence until he has reached the place of employment and does not continue when he has left the place of employment. But the the journey to and from the place of employment is excluded. However, as per this theory, notional extension theory, there could be reasonable extension of the course of employment in the terms of the time and place. But as a general rule, we take that once we have reached to the workplace and once we are leaving the workplace, our work is over. But according to this notional extension theory, there could be a reasonable extension of the course of employment in the terms of time and place, and workman may be regarded as in the course of his employment, even though he had not reached or he had left his the employer's premises. Still means it would be the course of employment, and there is a notional extension of both the entry and the exit from the workplace by time and space, and the scope of such extension must necessarily depend on the given circumstances in the given cases. And an employment may end or may begin not only when the employee begins to work or leaves his tools, but also when he uses the means of access or egress and egress to and from the place of employment. There is a case, General Manager Best Undertaking Bombay versus Mrs. Agnes, a public utility transport service run by the Bombay Municipal Corporation, owned a number of buses and employed a staff, including bus drivers, for conducting the said service. And the deceased driver finished his work for the day. After leaving the bus in the depot, he boarded another bus in order to go to the residence. Bus collided with a parked lorry, and as a result of the said collision, he was thrown out of the road and got injured, and later on he could not survive and he died in the hospital. And then the widow of the driver filed application in the Court of Commissioner for compensation, and the Supreme Court stated that in view of the long distance to be covered by the employee, the corporation as a condition of the service provides a bus for collecting in all the drivers from their buses, from their houses, I beg your pardon, so that they may reach their depots in time and take them back after the day's work. They are given that facility as a right because efficiency of the service demand. In this case, the court observed that the employment does not necessarily end when the down tool signal is given or when the workman leaves the actual workshop where he is working. There is a notional extension at both the entry and the exit time at this way. So in this case, the doctrine of notional extension of employment developed, and in the context of the specific workshops, factories, and harbors, equally applies to such bus services, which provided to employees to get to a job on time and reaching their home without further strain, contributing to the overall efficiency. So in this case, Supreme Court held that when a driver, when going home from the depot or coming to the depot, uses the bus, any accident that happens to him is an accident in the course of his employment. So it is, means held by the Supreme Court in this case. And the employer's liability is also there in case of the occupational diseases. In case of the occupational diseases, the employer is also liable to pay the compensation, and workers, employed in certain occupations are exposed to certain diseases which are inherent in those occupations. We can take example, a person who is engaged in a process of involving use of lead tetra ethyl is liable to contact poisoning by lead tetraethyl, in fact, and a person employed as a telegraph operator may contact telegraphist cramp. And all sorts these kind of diseases are known as the occupational diseases because all the times employees in contact of these hazardous substances, right, or articles. So, contacting of occupational disease is deemed to be an injury by accident within the meaning of Section 3 of the Act. And in these cases, unless the contrary is proved, the accident is deemed to have been arising out and in the course of the employment. As such, the employer is liable to pay compensation if the disease can be directly attributable to a specific injury by accident arising out and in the course of. And in fact, there is a detailed list of occupational diseases also given in the Schedule 3rd. So, diseases caused by work in compressed air, infrared radiations, skin disease due to chemical or leather processing units, hearing impairment causing by nose, lung cancers caused by asbestos dust, or disease due to the effect of extreme climatic conditions. These all are the examples. And the same time, there are certain defenses are also given available to the employer and employer's non-liability for payment of compensation. And if the injury does not end in the entire or the partial disablement of the employee for a period exceeding for a period exceeding 3 days. So when means these defenses are available to the employer, when employer is not liable to pay the compensation for personal injury caused to employee by accident arising out and in the course of employment, if the injury does not result in total or partial disablement of the employee for a period exceeding 3 days, and if the injury not resulting in death or permanent total disablement is caused by an accident which is directly attributable to, this is given under clause B, or earlier was given in clause A. In this clause B, there are sub clauses, and sub clause first state that the employee having been at the time of the accident under the influence of drink or drug. So, if the injury not resulting in death or permanent total disablement is caused by an accident which is directly attributable to the employee having been at the time of this accident under the influence of drink or drug, then employer will not be liable and he will take this defense. And another subclause, the willful disobedience of the employee to an order expressly given or to rule expressly framed for the purpose of securing the safety of the employee. In this case, also employer will take this defense and will not pay the compensation. And the subclause third, that the willful removal or disregard by the employee for any safety guard or other device, of course, this is an offense under the Factories Act also, 1948, when we talk about the safety provisions under the Factories Act 1948, which means for that employee knew to have been provided for the purpose of securing the safety of the employees. So if these defenses, if the situation is such, then the employee can take, I beg your pardon, employer can take the defenses, these defenses. And if these defenses were not available to the employer, then an employee may be, induced to cause to himself an injury for his own acts and claims and the compensation from the employer. So these defenses are, necessary for the employer. Otherwise, every time employee will induce to cause to himself an injury by his own acts. And of course, in case of the death of the employee, the exceptions, namely intoxication by drink or drug or willful disobedience or willful removal of safety devices are not applicable in case of the fatal accidents. So their employer will not take these pleas, and the reason is that where an employee has died as a result of the personal injury, it is extremely difficult for the dependents to rebut evidence that the accident was caused by the deceased misconduct. So, in the if the accident is the fatal one, then it would be difficult. So this is all means my dear students for you today's deliberation. You please go through uh, all these slides, right? And when the employee is entitled to receive the compensation, right? And what sort of defenses available to the employee. You go through these slides and refer the Bear Act also. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Have a nice time. Take care.